Now, I've bought a lot of liquidation pallets. I bought them both online and also in person, and I've shown a lot of videos about both, but today we're going to be going over the pros and cons of buying liquidation pallets online versus in store. So as of late, buying liquidation pallets in store is really what I normally do, but I also entertain the idea of buying those liquidation pallets online. So one of the first pros of buying liquidation pallets online, having no shipping costs. Now, shipping costs over the last couple years has really risen to kind of exorbitant prices, like crazy prices for shipping. And even back when I was buying liquidation pallets online, they were not necessarily, the shipping wasn't cheap. It was not, it wasn't what I wanted to pay. I can tell you that right now. Any cost that you have when you're buying stuff to resell, it's going to be impacting your business. It's going to impact your prices that you can sell the items to the customer. And shipping costs is just something that a lot of people don't want to deal with, especially when you're dealing with liquidation, because your profit margins are already sometimes lower than what you want them to be. So my second pro for buying a liquidation pallet in store is going to be that you can actually physically see what's on the liquidation pallet. Now, when I go to my pallet shops that's local, I can go through there, I can peruse through the store, you know, I can have my Starbucks coffee, and I can look at the items that are actually inside the pallet. Now, most of the time you can see the items, but sometimes they're are obscured, so you can't see what's in the pallet. Maybe you can just see what's on the top of the pallet, maybe you just see what's on the side of the pallets, but you can't always see like 100% what's on the pallet, but you can get a pretty good idea whether or not the pallet's going to be profitable. Now, my third pro for buying liquidation pallets in person is going to be getting to know the owners. I have gotten to know a lot of people that own pallet shops. I've gotten to know the owners, I talk to them, we laugh, especially when I go up to my current liquidation pallet shop that I go to. So like right now, when I go to my liquidation pallet shop up the street, Bargain Spot LLC, I love talking to Candace and Alden. They're really cool people, but you really get to get a sense of the people that you're dealing with. And a lot of times that rapport that you build with them is going to be paramount, especially when you're trying to get deals. You know, sometimes they give you deals, and you can't get that a lot of times when you're buying stuff online. But I have done that with companies that I have bought from online, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. So the next pro for buying in person is going to be instant inventory. So when you are buying and selling stuff online, sometimes you can get into the groove where you're selling stuff and stuff is going off the shelf and you got all these packages and there's so much stuff to do. But if you have access to instant inventory, you know that you can go up there on a Wednesday and pile up your store full of stuff. That's going to be paramount, especially if you're selling a lot of stuff and you really want to keep that momentum going. Now, if you're buying stuff online, obviously you're going to have to wait for shipping, and you know, there's going to be shipping stuff that's going to happen. It's going to happen. If you buy stuff online, you're going to have shipping issues because we've all had it. And if you're buying stuff from a pallet shop that is local, you're not gonna have a lot of those problems. And one of the last pros I wanna talk about for buying liquidation pallets in store is that you are less likely to get scammed. Now, I'm not saying that it's 100% that you're not gonna get scammed, because anybody can get scammed at any time. That's a given. I hope we all know that. I've made a video about that if you wanna see it, but you're less likely to get scammed when you are seeing a person, you're physically talking to a person, you can physically see the pallet you're about to buy and load into your car. Now, when you get the merchandise off the pallet, you could be scammed. But most of the time, it's not gonna be a, sending money over Venmo or Cash App and they send you 3 or 4 boxes of Amazon shoes. Now, buying liquidation pallets online does have its own pros. The first one is having a manifest, and sometimes the manifest is great, but sometimes it does obscure your thought process in buying the pallet, because you see this manifest, you see all this great stuff that's supposedly going to be on there. You also see the value of the pallet and you're like, oh, I gotta buy. And then you get it, and then you're just let down. So sometimes that can be kind of a pro con, looking at the value, looking at the manifest, being able to see what you're going to get on the pallet, looking at the value of the stuff that you're going to get, the individual items, how many items is actually on that pallet. Those are really good things to see when you're purchasing a liquidation pallet. But sometimes that can be a little bit of a detriment, because you make a quick decision based on what you're seeing online, and it doesn't necessarily match sometimes what you actually get. Another pro from buying liquidation pallets online is that you can actually source from multiple locations. So you're not sequestered to one little area. You can actually purchase from all over the country, and you can buy different pallets from different places. And the good thing about that is it's a double pro, because you can buy multiple pallets from multiple places, but you also have a good mix, a good diversity of pallets and of good inventory that you can get. So my local shop, they have different programs that they're in, like Amazon and Target. Lowe's. They have different things that I know for a fact every week they're going to have. But some of the stuff that I would like to try, they may not necessarily have. They may not have a Amazon coffin box program. They may not have Amazon electronic box program. So other places may have different programs that maybe your local shops doesn't have access to. Undelivered mail is one of the ones that we're going to try to do here, just because it's fun, not necessarily because not because it's the most profitable, let me tell you that, but because it is fun to do. And my local place doesn't have undelivered mail. That's just not one of the programs that they're into. So really having a diversified source of product is really paramount, especially if you're buying from Liquidation Pallets online. And also buying Liquidation Pallets online, you can sometimes go to bid sites like liquidation.com and get really good deals, because you may be in a good place where you're buying stuff and it's not a lot of bidders, or maybe, you know, it's stuff that's hidden and people don't see, so they don't bid on it. So you do have the option of purchasing Liquidation Pallets. It's not really a set price. There's, you know, you're putting in bids, you're bidding, whoa, it's sold, and you got it. And with purchasing Liquidation Pallets, most of the time in person, you're just going in and buying. Now they do have in-person bid auction pallet houses, so you can go in and auction to get these pallets. Also, they have the online where you can do it online, then you go pick it up in store. So there are those options with buying in person, but most of the time when you're going into a pallet shop, you're just going to have a price and you're going to pay that price. Now with pros, there also comes cons with buying Liquidation Pallets in person. So one of the biggest cons is that pallet shops aren't aplenty. There's not a huge network of pallet shops that people can go to, and I get that question the most on my videos is, hey, where can I buy pallets from? Where can I buy a pallet from? Where can I buy a pallet? And I'm like, I don't know, because we have a lot of them close to me. However, in other locations, they don't have a lot of pallet shops. They don't have liquidation pallet stores. So that's one of the biggest things, one of the biggest cons with buying in person, is that just the simple access to buying those liquidation pallets in person, you know, it's just not, sometimes it's just not accessible. Now also with that, sometimes your local pallet shops, if you have one, then it can be so saturated with people that are buying pallets. So we had a problem with that years ago. We would go to the pallet place. It was great. We was buying stuff. We was making money. And then more people was having great times buying stuff. And then more people was having great times buying stuff. And we couldn't get a pallet. We would literally come in and somebody would buy all the pallets and we would literally not be able to get a pallet. So I'm sure other people have experienced that in their local area. Just because of the oversaturation of people buying liquidation, people doing reselling. And that is a problem. If you have one pallet shop, you know, they could get oversaturated with people. Now, one thing about buying liquidation pallets in person is that if you do not have a truck or a vehicle that's large enough to transport a lot of items, that is going to be difficult for you. If you can go pick up that pallet right now, you know, are you going to be able to get it from point A to point B? Is it going to be easy for you to do that? We used to have to actually rent a Lowe's truck and pile the pallets on there. I've seen people get in their trucks, in their cars, in their Jeeps, in their trunks, and they're taking apart the pallet and putting it into their car and then taking it on. So getting the pallet from point A to point B is a big issue, especially if you are buying it locally. That's one of the good things about buying it online, is because you can get it shipped to your house and you don't have to do anything. They literally just drop it off in front of your door. They drop it off in your garage and you're good to go. But if you don't have a large enough vehicle to transport that stuff from A to B, it can be a little bit of a hassle. So when you're buying liquidation pallets in person, sometimes you do have a hard time like valuing the items, because, you know, I can go through and I can scan barcodes and say, you know, this is how much this item goes for on eBay, or, you know, I probably can sell this item if it is in there and it's all intact, but you really don't have a good way of knowing what the true value of the items are. Maybe you can pick out 1 or 2 items and say, okay, well, this is going to be really good for getting my money back for buying this pallet, and the rest of the stuff is just going to be profit. But then when you go look at the rest of the stuff, sometimes it ain't great, you know. So buying liquidation pallets in store, you can look and see some of the items. Sometimes they're in gaylords, they're inside boxes, and you can't dig through the boxes, so you don't necessarily know exactly what's inside of those pallets. But you know, that kind of goes with the mystery and the, you know, the fun of being able to unbox those pallets. A lot of people don't want fun. They want to make money, and you can't make money sometimes if you don't know exactly what you're purchasing. Obviously, there are going to be some cons for buying liquidation pallets online. One of the big ones is scammers. I have made a video about scammers if you want to check that video out, but online scammers are running rampant with liquidation pallets. You can go onto Instagram and they're always hitting you up and sending you emails, making these fake Facebook pages and posts, and then they suck people into buying liquidation pallets, and it's a big scam. So scamming is one of the biggest, hardest, most conniest thing with liquidation pallets online is you are very susceptible to scam. Also, buying liquidation pallets online, the shipping sometimes is so expensive. Sometimes the shipping is more than what the actual pallet is. We have a lot of examples of where we purchase pallets from, especially like bolt.com, liquidation.com, where the shipping is more than what the pallet costs. The pallet may cost $250, and now you're paying $300 for shipping. Now you're paying $500-600 for a pallet that you just bought one for $250. So you really have to think about the shipping costs and factor that into your profitability, looking at each item, seeing how much that item costs plus shipping, and kind of get your profit from there. Also, we have had problems with lost shipments. So FedEx, UPS, oh my God, they're so terrible with losing packages. I hate to say that. I don't want to bash any companies, but we have had lost pallets. We have actually had lost and open pallets when we've been shipping from these companies. So lost pallets and shipping is a really big problem, especially when you're shipping those large crates and cargo and things like that, because those items can be rummaged through. Sometimes those liquidation pallets are just wrapped up in the plastic, and people can put their grubby little paws down in there and grab a couple items, and you don't know, because you have a manifest and then you blame it on the person that sent it to you, but it's actually the post office and or the UPS store, and they actually took the items out, and you don't know. There's no way for you to tell whether or not it happened. We actually had some packages that were open inside one of our liquidation pallets. We actually had to go on a full mission. If you want to see that video, it's up here. We had to go on a full mission to get our pallets from the post office. I can't remember if it was USPS or FedEx. Either way, one of them, we had to go and do a Marvel mission to go get those. And then last but not least, looking at the manifest when you're buying liquidation pallets online sometimes can give you a value, or it gives you a false sense of security with thinking that you're going to get these items. You may see a pair of Apple AirPod Max on there, or you may see an iPad, or you may see whatever in there, and then when you get it, it's not exactly what you thought it was. So sometimes you have that false sense of security, whereas when you're in person, you can kind of look and see where they may have a PlayStation box in there, and maybe that PlayStation box doesn't have anything in it. You don't know. Looking at the manifest, it kind of gives you a inflated value sometimes, and sometimes you make a decision based off that value, and sometimes it's just not the case. Now, I'm not trying to scare you at all with this video. I just want you to be aware of what the potential risks are with buying in store or buying online, and there are risks with both of them. Just to be honest, anything with liquidation is going to be a little bit of a risk, and I hope I've been able to let people know that there is an inherent risk with buying liquidation pallets, no matter where you buy it from. I have done well with buying liquidation pallets online. If you've seen some of my other videos, you've seen me unbox those. You've seen me tell you what the profit was going to be from those items. You have seen me actually show you the actual sales of those items. So you can make money with liquidation pallets no matter what the comments say. Now, before making your first or next liquidation pallet purchase, make sure you check out this video where I'm going to be walking you through buying your first liquidation pallet. Also, check out this video where I'm going to be showing you where you can buy liquidation pallets from online right now.